guys, so I'm on Åland right now, and as you can see from this beautiful, oh my god. Okay, so we're probably going to be hearing a lot from those birds in the background. I can't do anything about it, so I'm just going to keep going. So it's very cloudy today, as you can see, so it's way too cold to just go in the water and hang out by the beach, so I thought I'd make a video instead. In all of my days, I've done quite a bit of traveling. Every single year since I was born, my parents have taken me to Europe. And so this video is, as you've seen by the title, about 10 travel stories from all my years of going abroad. My first one is a very recent one. A few weeks ago we were in Germany and we were staying with this lovely family in this tiny, or not super tiny, in this town called Darmstadt. It was very hot while we were there, unlike right now. Like, it was sunny and it was just, you know, kind of gross. So we went to a lake one day. And the family we were staying with, it was a husband and wife, and they had a son who's Kiri's age, so he's like 13 years old. And so we all go into the lake in our bathing suits, and then this kid, 13-year-old boy, decides to start throwing mud from the bottom of the lake at me and Kiri. And so we start a war. This means war. Kiri cut her pinky, I got all kinds of sand under my nails. It was a great time. But then later I was to learn that he had told all of his friends that he was mud wrestling. So mud wrestling with two girls, one of whom is 3 years older than him. Pretty slick, man. And it was actually his mom that told me that, which was even better because somehow his mom knew that he told all his friends that he was mud wrestling with me and my sister. And I'm not mad or anything, it was pretty funny, but like, I'm just like, dude, do you really want to go there? But my next story takes place in Denmark. So this was last year when we spent a few days in Denmark. We actually arrived in Denmark by train from Sweden, so we took it across the ocean, and that was pretty cool. The beds were very uncomfortable, but you know, it was an experience. So we find the apartment, and the host greets us, as you do, at the front door, and we had to go up these stairs to get to the right level of the apartment, so we're all sort of lugging our suitcases up these staircases, and Kiri's holding on to her suitcase with her right hand, her little pink carry-on bag, and so he goes to shake her hand, but since her right hand is occupied, she goes forward with her left, and so he just sort of goes, and she wouldn't change it because she didn't want to make it any more awkward than it already was, even though he was the one doing the nice little... And then he did the same thing to me, even though I, like a normal human, proffered my right hand. Anyway, so that was really awkward. And then my next story actually takes place in the same place in Denmark. So that night, when at the end of... Oh, these birds. So that night, we go and we have dinner at basically this huge community feast, right? There's like this sort of community center in the neighborhood, and they made a ton of food, and it was really good. Like, I ate a lot, and like the whole neighborhood was there, and they were all sitting at the tables, and they were nice enough to speak to us in English, because we're not cool enough to speak Danish. I go home that night, go to sleep, right? And then I wake up early in the morning, feeling absolutely terrible. I won't go into details there, but long story short, I threw up in my first morning in Denmark, and that was great because it was right when we were about to go do lots of touristy things in the hot Denmark city. If you've ever been to Denmark, you'll know that it's a very flat place, so there's not a lot of hills, and so one of the best ways for you to get around is by bike because it doesn't take that much work, and there's lots of bike rental places everywhere. I had a huge fear of bikes at the time. So you can imagine how I felt about throwing up that morning, which is another thing I'm very afraid of, throwing up, and then having to get on a bike and go around a city I've never been in before in the heat where where everyone is speaking a different language. But I did it, okay? I did it. I conquered my fear of bikes. Everything was fine. Okay, so this next story actually takes place here on Åland. Me, my dad, my sister, and my grandfather were all playing Fia McNuff, or Ludo, or I guess Sorry, down by the beach on the deck. And what you need to understand about my family is that we go ham when we play Fia McNuff. Like, it gets really intense. There is screaming, there is fighting, there are tears of anger and tears of joy. Like, we don't mess around. My grandfather thought it would be nice to bring out this beautiful set of 4 ivory dice that he owns. 4 ivory dice, who fucking knows? As you may know, it is very illegal to own pretty much anything made out of ivory these days, because obviously elephants are endangered and we shouldn't hunt them for their face teeth. These are very expensive items, and they're very rare. Like, you wouldn't be able to get them authentic nowadays. Well, not legally anyway. So, we're playing Fib McDuff with these dice, and Kiri, being the completely extra, over-dramatic person that she is, rolls the die super dramatically and so hard that it goes right off the table onto the deck and in between the cracks of the wooden, like, slats, right into the ocean. My dad was so pissed. And then we spent the next few days crawling under the deck in the water looking for that ivory dice. And we still have not found it to this day. It's been like 2 years. No one knows. This next story takes place in Paris. The first time I went to Paris, so that was like 2 years ago. We were staying in this apartment, Airbnb again, that was actually across the street from the apartment in which the guy who sang for the Doors overdosed in. Some nice little trivia for you there. Find me on Google Maps. In that apartment, it was a really weird setup for the bathroom. Like, there was this tiny little room that was like 2 by 2 with a toilet in it and nothing else. So then you'd have to go into the kitchen, which is next door, to wash your hands. My parents had gone out to dinner. Kiri and I stayed home and just made pasta and hung out with the nice Wi-Fi connection because we were super tired after a full day of touristing. Well, I go into that weird little 2 by 2 room with the toilet, do my thing, try to get out, and I can't open the door. Like, I think it was a latch door, so I could open the latch. Like, it was unlocked, but I could not, for the life of me, get the door open. Like, I was throwing myself against it as much as you can in a room that's 2 feet by 2 feet. But, like, I could not get out. So I start hammering on the door, and I yell for Kiri. And for the first, like, 5 minutes, she doesn't answer. Because, you know, she's on her phone. Earphones in. Doesn't care about the whereabouts of her sister. Never will. Finally, when I get her attention, I say, Kiri, I've locked myself in the bathroom. And she's like, what do you want me to do? Because we don't know the emergency number for Paris. And even if we did, I wouldn't want to call, like, the fucking fire department to get them to axe the door down to free me from this tiny prison. Plus, it was a rental apartment. So, like, we can't axe the door down. So I'm stuck in this little bathroom with nothing in it, just basically sitting on the floor, like, with nothing to do. It was the dumbest situation I could have possibly gotten myself into. But luckily, I just had to, like, pretty much kick the door down. Like, it just took a lot of force to get it open, and I never locked that door again. I don't think I ever closed it all the way again because I didn't want to repeat myself. This other story also takes place on Åland. We were with these 2 girls called Bella and Johanna, who are Swedes who vacation here on Åland, which a lot of people do here. And they are a few years younger than us. They're more around Kiri's age. And they, being the adventure sport girls that they were, wanted to swim out to one of the islands that's a little ways away from the beach. There's a tiny little island there. It's not really just a rock. That's about like 200 meters away. They say, oh, we want to go swim out to that island. And I was like, this is a lot of effort, but okay. So I convinced them to put on life jackets because the ocean is very deep there. Like, you can't stand up. Like, where they live in a shallow part, so it's basically, it doesn't get any deeper than like 6 feet. So we put on life jackets and we basically doggy paddle our way over to the islands. And it takes, like, so long. Like, we're so slow and just bad at swimming. We're pretty much exhausted by the time we get there. But before we can even get up onto the islands for, like, a breather, these birds start swooping over us and attacking us. Apparently there's a couple of nesting birds on the island, and they freaked out. They started, like, screeching at us. They were swooping at us. They, like, came within touching distance. Like, I could have whacked one out of the sky. I started like throwing water at them like a freaking water bender because I didn't want to get like pooped on or anything, even though I'm in the water. But yeah, so needless to say, we swam back pretty quickly. My next story happened a really, really long time ago. So when me and Kiri were pretty little. So it has been told to me secondhand by my father. So I don't actually know if this happened, but it definitely sounds like it could have happened. It was in Ireland. Kiri was like probably 3 or something, old enough to be walking, but not really old enough to have any concept of social norms. And my parents had taken us to this church because Ireland is pretty much full of churches. There was this stone throne that had been roped off because it was, I think, called like the bishop's chair or something like that, or the archbishop's chair, where only the newly appointed archbishops were allowed to sit. And, you know, so it's a tourist attraction, roped off so people can't get to it. People are taking pictures and all that. And Kiri, 3 years old, being the wee little shite that she was, crawled under the ropes, goes up and sits on the chair, all entitled, like, yes, I approve of this chair. This is a good chair. Long story short, Kiri pretty much hasn't changed from day one. This next story involves Kiri, and it definitely happened because I was there and I posted about it on my Instagram. It was, I think, last year. Kiri had recently bought this shampoo and conditioner for blonde hair. It was supposed to like eliminate brass tones and make her hair all light and nice. And she decided, of course, well, I want to take it to Europe with me. I want to be blonde and beautiful while I'm in Europe. You know, when you go through the airport, you're not allowed to have such giant containers. So normally you put in all your product into little travel size things if you want to have it on you, or you can pack it in your checked baggage. Kiri does neither of those things. She puts these huge 8.5 ounce containers of shampoo and conditioner, so 17 ounces total, into her suitcase, into her carry-on, and takes it with her on the flight. No one stopped us. No one did anything. We didn't even notice that anything was wrong until we got off the plane and were waiting for our checked baggage to arrive at the baggage claim area, because we opened her suitcase and realized that all this light purple conditioner had burst because of the altitude and, you know, changing pressures, and had gotten all over her nice MacBook. Well done, Kiri. So we had to race to the bathroom and grab a bunch of paper towels and try to clean out, because a bunch of the conditioner had gotten into the ports, which is really nice. So there's all this like purple stuff on the inside of her suitcase and all over the laptop. The laptop worked fine, so everything is fine, but come on, Kiri. Good lord. Okay, digressing a bit. My next story takes place here again, and with those same two girls from earlier, Bella and Johanna. Bella's family owns an ATV, which is like this sick all-terrain vehicle with 4 giant wheels. It's like a motorcycle, but with 4 wheels. We were over at their house and we got to drive it around, which probably wasn't a good idea to begin with because, you know, none of us are like licensed to drive, you know, any vehicle. But then we let Kiri behind the wheel, so to speak. There wasn't a wheel, it was just like handlebars. So we let Kiri drive it. And keep in mind, there's 4 of us little girls, so we all sort of had to squeeze on there. There's not a whole lot of room. It's mostly designed for like 2 people at most. So we're like kind of all crowded on there, and we let Kiri drive. And she hits the gas so hard that she knocks the girl in the back, Johanna, clean off. Like, she just falls off, and Kiri's having too much fun. And so when I try to tell her to stop because Johanna fell off, she just keeps going. She doesn't give a fuck. Later, she tried to turn it around, but I think she overestimated the turning radius that she would need to get it to do a U-turn, and she drove us right into the bushes, which was great. And so we had to figure out how to, you know, like, back it up. And I had a feeling that it had to do with, you know, the gear shift, but I didn't know which letter was reverse because I thought it was the R, but if it was in Swedish, then I could just do something terribly wrong. So we did have to get Bella's mom to come over and help us get the ATV out of the bushes. Okay, final story. 2 years ago in Ireland, Kiri and I did a sailing camp, which was a terrible idea because Ireland is cold and miserable and no one wants to go in the water. And also, Kiri really hates boats. Like, she has a extreme fear of boats. Like, you know how I mentioned I had a fear of bikes before I went to Denmark and conquered my fear after vomiting my guts out that morning? She never got rid of it. Like, she's still really afraid of boats. For some reason, my parents were like, why not send them to a sailing camp in Ireland where they don't know anybody and it's all strange and different? Everyone talks with an accent and they're all farmers. Kiri and I survived the 5 days of sailing camp. Like, it was just, like, it was all guys, first of all, so that was kind of miserable, because we just had each other, and then there was one other girl, and she ditched Kiri when they got stuck in a lobster trap together on their boat, which is, you know, another story for another time. It was the last day, so the counselors were like, let's just sort of have fun today, you know, let's not do any actual learning, you know, because you're not going to remember any of this anyway. We decided to play this game called Pirates, where everyone gets a boat, and you basically all sail around trying to capsize each other, which is really fun for two girls who don't feel like they belong there and are really not aggressive in any way, shape, or form. Kiri and I, we sail together, you know, I do all the work because Kiri is too afraid to, you know, do anything with the boat. And we basically stay away from everyone else because we're like, we're not getting wet today, okay? We came out here to have a good time. We're just gonna stay away from all you guys. But then this boat full of boys starts following us and saying, we're gonna sink you because you're girls. 10 out of 10 logic. They're sailing up behind us, they're closing in. One of their guys jumps off of their boat and onto ours and starts trying to capsize it. So Kiri launches herself onto their boat and she grabs the mast, you know, and starts pulling them over, and she actually succeeds, which is crazy because, you know, she's like probably 11 or 12 at the time, I think, most likely 11, and she full-on capsizes this boat full of boys like a complete badass. And then she jumps off their boat because she is really afraid of capsizing and gets back onto ours. And this boy from the other boat, which is now capsized, is still trying to capsize us. And Kiri's like, oh hell no, bitch. And so she starts wiggling the boom. She hits him in the face and he falls off. And then we pick up a huge gust of wind and we just sail away and we leave him in the middle of the ocean. It was a moment of victory for us. Later that same day, my cousin pushed Kiri into the water and she dragged him. She grabbed onto him as she was falling and dragged him down with her. I think the moral of this video is don't fuck around with Kiri because she will sink your boat, she will drag you into the water, she has no fear. Thanks for watching, guys. If you have traveled before, what have you experienced? Have you ever met anyone crazy and done anything crazy? Anything like that? Comment it down below. Bye. Can you hear me? Can you hear the birds? I love nature.